Comparing the Switch 2 and the PlayStation Portal was an interesting matchup. On paper, the Switch 2 should have destroyed the PlayStation Portal. However, after a deep analysis, the results actually was shocking. Where the new Nintendo Switch 2 is only 9 months into its life cycle, it can run games up to 120 MHz at 1080p and run games natively, whether in handheld mode or in dock mode, where the PlayStation Portal initially released to be an accessory device for the PlayStation 5. However, as of recent with the new update, you can now run games from the cloud streaming platform, omitting the requirement for a PlayStation 5. Upon its launch, the PlayStation Portal did unfortunately receive a lot of critique, and this was because of its price and its lack of features. A quick note, there are rumors or speculations that a new PlayStation Portal is going to be released from Sony. However, I decided to buy one from eBay, but unfortunately the left analog was broken. Hello, just for reference, this is the PlayStation Portal that arrived today. It's beautiful, works perfectly. It's just this left stick here. It's a bit hard to show because it's an internal issue, but there's a bit of stickiness, and this left stick is a bit damaged compared to this right stick. You'll only know if you get to hold it and move it yourself. So that's it, but it's in perfect condition. I'm just putting it back in the box now. So that's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm quite devastated I have to return it, but that left stick, because it's one of the main features, it's just rendered the item unusable, basically. And this highlights the first major flaw with the PlayStation Portal. Unlike the Nintendo Switch 2, where you can remove the Joy-Cons and replace them, if for any reason you break any part of the PlayStation Portal, the entire device is now rendered useless. Thankfully, I managed to return the PlayStation Portal for a full refund, and I bought a new one. Right, so let's get this thing unboxed. I also did get this case. This was not too expensive. It was around 20 or 30 pounds off Amazon. It comes with a screen protector and all that stuff, which I'll show you later. This is the box. It's actually such a beautiful box. I've got no complaints about the packaging. It's really well made, really put together. The design is absolutely phenomenal. Here's the side, just information on the back, typical descriptions and stuff. Nothing really impressive here, just your bog standard stuff, really. Anyways, let's get this thing open. There is a seal that took me a minute to open, but once you get it open, you just slide it off like this, and then you hit with this instruction manual, which again, nobody really cares about, so I just threw it to the side. Straight away, you're presented with the PlayStation Portal, wrapped up beautifully. It's really well packaged. They haven't cheaped out or anything on it. And then inside, all you get though, that I noticed, there was no other wires except this USB-C, which I'll be honest, I kind of struggled opening. I was like, what on earth? How do I open this thing? As you can probably see here. But finally, eventually I got it, and you presented with this absolutely beautiful USB-C cable, which I'm sure we've all got a million of. So I just threw it to the side. Let's get the PlayStation Portal open. And on first impressions, I didn't like this screen protector. I'm going to be honest. This just made it so ugly. But overall, it was beautiful. But let me take this off, and oh my God, please don't break the screen. Please don't break the screen. Please don't break. Ah, please, please, please. Slowly. Oh my God, the pressure, nearly there. Right. Yeah, we've got it. We've done it. We've done it, boys. Right. Now that the hideous thing is off this device, it is absolutely so flipping beautiful. Right. I was so happy I went with this color so I don't get stains on it and stuff and things like that. So I'm absolutely thrilled with how beautiful this thing is. The screen, impeccable. Anyway, let's get this case open really quickly. Inside is just typical stuff. I just ripped off the wrapping, and then inside you hit with the plastic covers. One goes on the left side and one goes on the right side, and then one goes on the back. That's how it works. You also have these screen protectors, which I will show, but I'll put that on off camera because you do need to focus a bit. But here's the cover for the right side, and then I'll show you the cover for the left side. But yeah, it's really well put together, not cheap at all. And here's the left side now. And this goes over it so you don't, get fingerprints on it and dirt and things like that. I just put the cover on, and here's how it works. I booted it up, and I didn't want to put all this startup stuff on camera because I didn't want to put you to sleep. In regards to comfortability, the Switch 2 has its pros and cons. Yes, you can remove the Joy-Cons, and yes, you can add and remove a grip. As demonstrated before, this is what makes the Switch 2 have an advantage over the PlayStation Portal, because for heaven forbid, if you do break one of the parts or one of the Joy-Cons, you can simply remove them and then have them replaced. However, compared to the PlayStation Portal, the Switch 2 Joy-Cons aren't even comparable. The Switch 2 Joy-Cons are good, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like they aren't usable. But compared to the PlayStation Portal, they do not come close. And this is the main con of the Switch 2. You will need to invest into a grip if you are going to play long hours on a Switch 2. I personally invested into a grip, which I'll do a review on in the near future. Now, the PlayStation Portal, in simple terms, is literally a DualShock controller split in half and attached to a screen. The screen on the PlayStation Portal, in my personal opinion, is much more aesthetically and much more vibrant than the Nintendo Switch 2. In regards to gaming on the PlayStation Portal, yes, you do need a PlayStation subscription, but you can now play in two modes. One is cloud streaming, where you can literally run cloud games on your PlayStation Portal, or two from your PlayStation 5. However, in order to play them from your PlayStation 5, they need to be downloaded and installed on your PlayStation 5 first, and then you can run them on your PlayStation Portal. Just a quick note, the games need to be installed on your PlayStation 5 before playing them. And if you want to stream them, then you need to go into the cloud app on your PlayStation Portal. You cannot play cloud games from your PlayStation 5, which is a weird update maneuver, which I do not understand. However, on my PlayStation 5, I have Assassin's Creed Shadows installed, which I'll demonstrate now. There is literally no lag, no latency issues while running Assassin's Creed Shadows from a CD from my PlayStation 5, as you can see here. The game runs smoothly, no lag, no latency, no nothing. However, again, this is all dependent and contingent based on your internet connection. With the Nintendo Switch 2, you do not need to worry about internet connection at all or stability issues. The game runs natively from the Switch 2 device. I know digital keycards have gotten a backlash, but you do not need to be online to utilize a digital keycard either with the Switch 2. Games run smoothly. I've never had any lag or latency issues on my Nintendo Switch 2, whether it's Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Literally nothing. The other advantage the Nintendo Switch 2 has over the PlayStation Portal, and this is very subtle and very detailed to me, and that is I can literally pick up the Switch 2 no matter what time of day and pretty much trust that I will just jump back right into the game where I left off. Where the PlayStation Portal, depending on what mode I'm in, whether I'm playing via the PlayStation 5 method, I will always have that fear that my internet isn't as stable, or if the cloud streaming platform went down or something of that nature. I'm not as confident on the PlayStation Portal as I am on my Nintendo Switch 2. Another huge advantage of the Nintendo Switch 2 is that I know for the fact if I ever do get into a game that requires me to play competitively, I can do that on the Nintendo Switch 2. There is zero lag, zero latency, and it's not contingent on an internet connection, where the PlayStation Portal is. However, that does not mean the PlayStation Portal you cannot game. The latency on the PlayStation Portal when it's working is pretty much perfect. However, with all these benefits seemingly pushing towards Nintendo Switch 2's direction, the PlayStation Portal has one key ingredient that makes it competitive towards the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is its library of games. The PlayStation Portal's online subscription with all its cloud games are just such in variety. With the Nintendo Switch, I am locked into the Nintendo ecosystem, and the prices of each game with the ecosystem of Nintendo and the culture of Nintendo is that the games are so expensive. With the online subscription of PlayStation Portal, I've got thousands of games to choose from the card library or the endless games I have on my PlayStation 5 installed. It depends on my taste and flavor of the day. With the Switch 2, I am locked into that Nintendo ecosystem, and that can get pretty pricey very quickly. There are days where I don't want to dive deep into a game. I just want to test out different games, test out demos, see what I kind of like, pick and choose, and go from there. With the Nintendo Switch 2, you buy it, and that's the end of it. If you like the game, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. I had a really bad experience buying Pokemon ZA for nearly $70, and I did not even play it. I did not even get past the first level. That game was absolute trash. Another key factor of the PlayStation Portal, of course, is its price. It is considerably cheaper than the Nintendo Switch 2. However, you have to keep in mind that if you want to play the PlayStation Portal, theoretically, you can play it without a PlayStation 5, but I do not recommend this. The cloud library, although vast in number, if you do want to play a game like Assassin's Creed Shadows, if it's not on the library, then it's not on the library. There's nothing you can do about it. Where if you have a PlayStation 5 and install the game, then of course you can play it. So just keep that in mind when buying a PlayStation Portal. Although the update technically does allow you to play games from the cloud server, it's still not a standalone device, and you are locked in to that PlayStation ecosystem, which has its pros, but also has its cons. So please keep that in mind. But then if you consider and factor in the price of a PlayStation 5, in addition to the cost of the PlayStation Portal, then it actually comes more expensive than the Nintendo Switch 2 overall.
Both consoles do allow you to play backwards compatible with older consoles. For example, on the PlayStation Portal, you can play PlayStation 2 games. This is Indiana Jones from the PlayStation 2. And on the Nintendo Switch, you can now emulate games from the older devices like the GameCube and the Nintendo 64. For example, games like Zelda Ocarina of Time run smoothly on the Nintendo Switch 2. However, both games do actually run perfectly on the PlayStation Portal, and this is caveat on your internet. The PlayStation Portal, although I've made it seem like it has lag and stutters, etc., when the connection is on, it is perfect. There is zero latency, there is zero lag, and it really is an enjoyable experience to play on the PlayStation Portal. Also, one additional note, the PlayStation Portal is considerably lighter, in my personal opinion, than the Nintendo Switch 2. And this is because there is actually no hardware inside the PlayStation Portal. It's literally just a streaming device. In regards to graphics, the PlayStation Portal obviously outcompetes the Nintendo Switch 2. However, games like Tears of the Kingdom are optimized for the Nintendo Switch 2. And Nintendo, to give them credit where credit is due, are making a great effort and strides to bring in third-party titles, high rendered, graphically challenging titles to the Nintendo Switch 2. But no matter how much optimization Nintendo provide, they will never outcompete PlayStation in this manner. So in conclusion, if I had to choose out the two, I would lean towards the Nintendo Switch 2, based on if I already own the PlayStation 5. However, the gap isn't that large. With the new updates with the PlayStation Portal, the lack of latency, the new streaming titles that are coming out for the PlayStation Portal, I honestly think the gap is getting closer and closer. As we advance into a handheld gaming era, I think that Sony can relaunch something that will outcompete the Nintendo Switch 2. However, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Nassim from the System Decoded. I'll speak to you soon. Take care and have a beautiful, blessed